Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this episode 3823 AN. Today's date is January 21st, 2026, and the title of the episode is Fake News Central Bank Tried to Deceive the People While Trump Created the New Economic System. Well, it's a new year, and we've all seen the headlines about Ozempic and similar miracle weight loss shots. But a major 2025 analysis just revealed that people who stop taking these injections regain an average of 60% of their weight within just 1 year. Most of the gain is pure fat, and the muscle lost during the treatment stays gone, leaving you with a crash metabolism and a body that's basically older than when you started. This is why I'm taking something way better called GLP-1, and I'm obsessed with the results I'm seeing in the mirror. It doesn't use needles to override my system. It uses plant-based, clinically studied ingredients like Metabolaid to help my body naturally boost its own hungry controlling signals. I get the same fullness and less cravings, but without the prescriptions, scary side effects, or metabolic rebound. This magical supplement supports my weight management goals while protecting my muscles, helping me keep the weight off for good. To celebrate the new year, it currently has a 50% off promotion for GLP-1 Elevate only at trimwithx22.com. Plus, every order for a limited time comes with a free 60-day satisfaction guarantee and free express shipping with subscriptions. Once again, the site is trimwithx22.com. Get yours now, or just click the link in the description. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, the private West Central Bank, the World Economic Forum, they have lost again. If you notice, the central bank, which is the IMF, the ECB, the Federal Reserve, they've all been deceiving the people. And you could see every step of the way as they deceive the people and lie to the people, Trump is actually creating the new economic system and showing the people it doesn't have to be this way. It could be very, very different. And he's showing the people that we're heading towards the golden age. And a lot of people, they might be thinking, well, how could that possibly be? Well, what's going to happen is we're going to end up eventually breaking free of the central bank illusionary economic system. And we're going to be going into a people system, a people-driven system with sound money going back to the Constitution. And everything the central bank has done is going to be wiped off the face of the earth. And the people are going to see a new system that's going to be absolutely incredible. Now, again, we just can't throw a switch and then automatically go into the new system, because a lot of people would be hurt if we actually did that. Because once again, the entire world is driven by what? By the central bank systems. And in this country, we use the Federal Reserve note. It's not the US dollar. And Trump, he has to plan a way to transition us away from the central bank so people do not lose their wealth, so people can continue with their lives. Now, if it was the opposite way, and we know the central bank was planning on this because they were going to do it no matter if Trump was in office or not in office, they're planning on bringing down the whole entire economic system and bringing us into the central bank digital currency and the new system that they wanted. Now, we saw this back in the 70s. What did they do? We came off the gold standard, and that plunged the world into a deep recession. Some places, the countries were in a depression, and we saw fuel shortages, and it had nothing to do with the world running out of gas or oil. Of course, that was the cover story back then. But what it was really about, it was about shifting from the gold standard to the petrodollar system, and they had to make up an excuse, and they didn't care if people lost their jobs. They didn't care if people lost anything, because their entire motivation was to bring us into their new system. Trump now is preparing everything and will be transitioning into the new system that he's creating. And yes, you need to have a new system in place before you make the transition. And that is what Trump is doing right now. He has now created the parallel economic system, and it's called the tariff system, the gold card system, the energy sales system, the AI or / technology system. And basically, he's going to be using that. And yes, there's other things that are attached to this, like stable coins and things like that. He's going to be using this to transition us from one system to another. Is he going to do it all in one shot, or is he going to do it slowly but surely? I do believe he's going to do it slowly but surely, and making sure that the people don't lose their wealth. And eventually, all the people will be on the new system. Yes, at the time, we'll probably still use the Federal Reserve note. You'll still use the same currency. But what I mean by the transition is that the tariff system will be paying the income taxes. The tariff system will be supporting the government programs. The tariff system will be used as the engine. The central bank will sit there idly, doing pretty much absolutely nothing. And since it doesn't have the power anymore, and what does that mean? It means all eyes will be on the new system. And people will be sitting there going, okay, wait a minute. We have the central bank. We have the tariff system. We don't have to pay income tax anymore. Fuel prices are dropping like a rock. And Trump is using the other portion of the tariffs to pay down the debt. And he's also using stablecoins to pay down the debt. And what we're experiencing now, since we're no longer borrowing from the central bank system, we're starting to experience that our currency goes much, much further than it did before. And I think people are going to start to wake up and they're going to start to realize what is happening. Plus, Trump and his team, they're going to tell people this. And I do believe this is going to be part of the transition. And this is going to spread around the world. Because remember, whatever the United States does, the other countries are going to follow. The people are going to push their installed politicians out onto the streets, and they're going to vote for the people that they truly want. And those people are going to follow in the footsteps of the United States. It's happened before. It's happened many, many times, and it will happen again. And you can see every step of the way, Trump is showing the world the new system that he's creating is not the Green New Scam. It's not the Great Reset. It's sound money and giving the power back to the people. And when he was out in the World Economic Forum, which he's still out there, he let everyone know, and Election Wizard put this out, that Germany is screwed. He said the Green New Scam, windmills all over the place, destroy your land. You're supposed to make money with energy. Germany now generates 22% less electricity than it did in 2017. And if they keep destroying their plants and they're relying on windmills and solar power and you name it, they'll have no electricity. And it will cost a lot of money. And you have to remember, those windmills, it takes a lot of oil to keep them operational. Think about that for a second. So right there, Trump is letting everyone know that the Green New Scam, it does not work. Now, what's very interesting is the central bankers, they want you to believe, and they've been trying to convince everyone, that Trump's tariffs are going to create inflation. And you know what the people have seen? No inflation. Actually, inflation is continually going down and down and down. Now, people are going to say, well, I still see the prices are very high in the supermarket. I still see the prices are very high when I go to the other stores. Well, you have to remember, inflation is cumulative. It doesn't go away. You can mitigate it. You can level it off, but all the cumulative inflation pretty much stays. Now, you can drop the inflation price by lowering the fuel costs, which Trump is doing right now, which means delivery costs will go down, production costs will go down, which will make the items cheaper. But inflation, that is basically the devaluation of the currency. So that just doesn't go away automatically. Can you mitigate the inflation that you're feeling? Yes, you can, by reducing the energy costs. When you reduce the energy costs, it lowers the cost of production, lowers the cost of delivery, which then will show up in the price of the product. But the cumulative inflation doesn't disappear, because if we can get that to disappear, we go back to 1971 prices before we came off the gold standard. Now, how do we make the inflation go away? Well, we make it go away by paying off the debt. And when you pay off the debt, it means you remove the currency out of circulation, and that currency goes back to the Federal Reserve. And if you take the $36 trillion and you give it all back to the Federal Reserve, what happens? Well, all of a sudden, you start to see a lot less inflation. That means the buying power comes back to the people. That means the people now have the ability to purchase. Just like when we came off the gold standard, what did you see back then? Well, the value of the currency, it dropped. It dropped like a rock. So as the currency declined, what did the central bankers have to do? Well, they had to increase wages. It was a trick. They had to adjust everything. And it made everyone feel incredible, because again, if you had a payment on your car, or if you had a gas credit card at the time and you were making payments on the gas credit card, or if you had a mortgage, all of a sudden when they adjusted your wages were a lot more than the fixed amount that you were paying. So it felt incredible. The same thing is going to happen now. Those people that have credit cards, those people that have mortgages, those people that have car payments, those people that are making a certain amount of money, when the buying power comes back, all of a sudden, it's going to feel like you're making a lot more money, which means it's going to be a lot easier to pay that mortgage, that car payment, that credit card bill. And I do believe this is why Trump is planning to have the mortgages go out 50 years, because once again, once we go back to sound money, your mortgage payments are going to be like, it's going to feel like they're like nothing. Just like if you go back in time and you talk to your parents or your grandparents and you ask them, hey, when we came off the gold standard in the 70s and you had a fixed mortgage, what did it feel like? They'll tell you, oh, our mortgages, they were easy to pay because our wages were adjusted up. Hey, listen, if you're over 40 and planning to retire someday, the window to protect what you've built may be smaller than you realize. Here's a question most people never ask. Is your portfolio built for what's coming next? Many investors in their 40s and 50s discover they have little to no exposure to precious metals. That means their savings are largely tied to markets, policies, and paper assets, with very little protection if conditions change. As retirement moves from someday to on the horizon, protecting what you have already built becomes just as important as growing it. That's where Noble Gold Investments come in, helping investors reduce risk by adding physical gold to their portfolios. Right now may be a smart time to talk with Noble Gold Investments. No pressure, no sales gimmick, just clear answers and strategy built around our goals. Visit X22Gold.com and build your portfolio for the long term. That's X22Gold.com, or just click the link in the description. And remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. But again, it's like a drug addict. It felt good in the beginning, but as time goes on, you need more and more of that drug, which means you basically end up in a death spiral. And that's what's happening to this economic system. But you can see the IMF, they're trying to convince everyone that most of the tariffs, that is being paid by U.S. importers, and they're paying about 90% of the tariff costs. So while indeed there is a substantial amount of tax revenue being collected from the tariffs, it's basically being paid by U.S. firms and importers. Well, under the law, yes, the importers pay 100% of the tariffs, but they left out the most important thing. Even though they're the ones by law that have to pay it, it doesn't mean that they're not working with their foreign counterparts to actually chip in for the costs. So that's the part they left out. So yes, there are foreign entities that are assisting in paying for this, because again, the manufacturers in the other countries, they're now basically paying part of the cost, or maybe some of all the costs, but the actual payment is by the importers. So once again, you have to look at this at a different way, and you have to understand that once again, they're not telling you the whole truth. And think about it. The legacy media, the fake news, the central bankers, they all told us that if Trump implemented tariffs, we would see inflation and it would crush consumer spending. Did that happen? Absolutely not. E.J. Antonio, PhD, put this out and said, New York Fed, household spending growth accelerated to 4.9% year on year in December, up from 4.1% in August. And planned spending for the year ahead also increased. Combined with lower inflation rates compared to previous years, this means households are buying more, not just spending more. Peter Sayon, PhD, says legacy media predicted Trump's tariffs would crush consumer spending. Instead, we're almost at 5% growth. Again, the deceivers were wrong again. And they're trying to convince everyone that the stock market was going to take a dip because of the tariffs that were placed on all the European nations and Denmark, because they weren't going along with what Trump wanted with Greenland. But it looks like the EU, NATO, they all folded, and now Trump has won Greenland, and now they're discussing the framework of actually controlling Greenland, which is very, very interesting. And Trump let everyone know the market going down is peanuts. He says the Dow is going to be hitting 50,000, and it could double to 100,000 in a relatively short period of time. Now, it is almost up to 50,000 already. Now, why would it double to 100,000? Well, think about it. If we're going back to sound money, we're removing the private West central bank system, and we're paying off the debt. What do you think the economy is going to look like? Because when the people are no longer paying the income tax and they're putting it back into the economy, and we have manufacturers coming back to this country, the plants are being built, at a rapid pace. And the economy is seeing an influx of currency because of the people. They're happy. They're getting a lot more money. They don't have to pay their income tax. Fuel prices are much lower. Credit card payments are much lower. Mortgage payments are much lower. Car prices and payments are much lower. Well, the economy is going to grow very, very rapidly, which means the company's going to do a lot better, which means they're going to hire, which means they're going to expand, which means the market's going to go up. Is he right? I do believe so. And you can see that everything that he's doing right now, he's prepping and preparing for what is to come. And I do believe what is to come is for Trump to transition us away from the private what's the central bank system. And since he took office, he reversed everything the Biden/Obama administration, the central bank has done. They were destroying the economic system. They lied about the job numbers. They lied about why fuel prices were going up. They lied about inflation. They lied about almost everything. And when you start to look at the different numbers, all the different charts, you can see that Trump's economic growth is absolutely incredible. When you look at the market, it is continually moving up. When you start to look at economic growth, it is now moving up. GDP in the third quarter has hit 4.3. Think about it. When Trump came into office, we were in a negative area. And then slowly but surely, he brought it up to 3.8. We brought it up to 4.3. And now we're at 5.3 estimated growth. What does that tell you? When you look at inflation, inflation reached 9.1% in 2022, the highest level in decades. When Trump handed the economy off to Biden, it was below 2%. And then he drove it up to 9.1%. Trump has taken that and he's brought it down. Now, when you look at this, you can see that when Trump came into office, inflation was around 3.1, 3.2%. And now inflation has come down to 2.7. Actually, if you look at true inflation, it's about 1.8% or so. And when you look at the trade deficit, Trump has cut the trade deficit in half. When you look at employment, you can see once Trump got rid of all the fake numbers and reset everything, jobs are being created. Yes, he's removing the jobs from government, but the private sector is growing by leaps and bounds. Remember, the government doesn't produce anything. Basically, what happens with a government job, the people pay more taxes to pay for that person just to sit there. A private sector job, well, the corporation, the manufacturer, has to be profitable. Those corporations, those manufacturers pay the employee because they're selling their product. So the taxpayer, the American citizen, does not have to pay for the employment that doesn't produce anything. That should tell you everything you need to know right there. Gas prices have come way, way down. When you look at fuel prices, and yes, it's different all over the place, but gas prices hit what? $7, $8 in a lot of places. They've come down to $3.50, $3.80. And then when Trump came in, he brought them all the way down to where we are today. Some places are seeing $1.80. Some places are seeing $2.50. Sorry, California, you're still paying something like over $4. So this should show you the direction that we're heading in. And if you look at the interest rates, the mortgage rates, Trump had to push the Fed to drop the rates. The Fed didn't want to drop the rates. The Fed wanted to keep the rates steady. Actually, I think they wanted to increase the rates to actually bring the entire economic system down. Actually, what's very interesting is that since Trump was putting a lot of pressure on Denmark and the European nations by placing tariffs on them, there were news article after news article letting everyone know that if this should occur, the Fed might have to raise rates because of this, because it might cause inflation and the market, the entire economic system might collapse because of these new tariffs. By the way, that was never going to happen. This was their excuse of why they wanted to raise the rates and their excuse of why the economy would come down, even though they will try to push the economy down. And once again, we're not seeing that happen whatsoever. So once again, you could see they are the deceivers. They always have been. And now Trump wants to show the people that, look, the tariff system is working. And he wants to give the people a $2,000 dividend check to the middle class. Now, it's going to be people making a certain amount of money. But Trump, he let everyone know that he's going to give a 2,000 tariff dividend check to the middle class without Congress. He said 2,000 dividend and pay down debt. We set an income limit. We can make a payment to the people without Congress. Now, he's probably going to do the same thing that he did with the 1776 payment bonus to the military members. Free World put this out and said, Trump won't need Congress if he can have funds that have already appropriated distributed as tariff dividends by reframing the payments so they fit within the allocated budget. Similar was done to send 1776 payments to active military members. Now, he's not going to say, hey, by the way, this is a tariff dividend, because, again, that would be coming from the tariff system. He'll probably use it and allocate different funds and allow these funds to be distributed to the American people. And then, of course, then he can use the tariffs and have Congress to say, hey, we have a little bit of a shortfall here. We need some money. And I do believe most likely this is what he's going to do. And think about it. This is all being done for what? It's all being done for the midterms. He's showing the people, look, my economic system works. We've taken what Biden has given us and we've built upon that and brought the entire country out of the recession, the deep recession that he put us in. All the lies, all the fake numbers, they're all gone. And we've taken the high inflation, the high fuel costs, and we lowered them. We've taken the low GDP number and we raised it up. And every step of the way, you could see Trump is now bringing the people into the new system that he's creating. And as people become happier, as people say, wow, this is incredible, once they get the refund from the One Big Beautiful Bill, once they get the tariff dividend, once fuel prices go even lower, people are going to start to say, this is incredible. And think about all the manufacturing plants that are being built right now, because a lot of construction jobs are going to be created. So yes, America is going to see a boom. And that boom is going to start in the spring. It's going to pick up in the summer. And by the fall, people are going to say, holy crap, this system that we're in today is absolutely incredible, just in time for the midterms and just in time for people to get on board to transition us away from the Federal Reserve and bring us into a people's system. Now, once again, I do believe Trump, he will try to remove the income tax from the people. He might try to do this during or right before the midterms, but I do believe this is going to happen most likely after the midterms. And this will help with the presidential election. And plus, once we get power in the House and the Senate, this will enable us to remove the Federal Reserve Act and place certain amendments into place where this should never, ever happen again, and give the power back to the people. And I do believe we'll probably be going back to the Constitution, going back to sound money. And what you're going to see is you're going to see silver, you're going to see gold, you're going to see Bitcoin, you're going to see all of this start to really move up. Actually, gold and silver, they're moving up very, very quickly right now. Gold now is approaching 5,000, silver is approaching 100. And I do believe this will continue moving up. Now, once again, will we see times when gold and silver drop? Of course we will. But I do believe when you step back and you look at the 40,000-foot view, the overall trajectory will be up. Because you have to remember, the central bankers have been pushing gold and silver down for a very, very long time using the paper market. And now silver and gold actually want to break out. Silver and gold actually want to show you what the true value really is. And I do believe with everything that Trump is doing, yes, gold and silver will continue to move up. And what you're going to see is you're going to see that once it reaches a certain point, Trump is going to probably start to talk about gold, talk about silver, talk about maybe auditing the gold reserves, because I do believe in the end, this is where this is all going to go. And if gold does go above 10,000 and silver reaches 500, 600, 700, and Trump starts to revalue the precious metals, this is going to give him even more leverage as we move forward. And when you really look at it, if gold, and I do believe that, yes, gold and silver will move up quite a bit, I do believe that gold and silver will be able to be used to destroy the Federal Reserve, destroy the fiat system, and show the people that the fiat system is worth absolutely nothing. And I think Trump will use that weapon in the end. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.